Now can you... Ah, there we go. Sorry about that. We had a little technical difficulty, but I think it has been solved. For some reason it had gone to my system default mic, which I don't even know what that is. But it seems to be working. Let me know if it sounds okay. Hi everybody. We have today's topic on there, and I don't have a topic, so I'm just going to turn that off. I don't know how to do that though. Text. Turn off the text. There we go. I'm doing great. Thank you all for coming and hanging out. Let's see who's here today. Welcome on this Monday morning from me. So we have Andy Stevenson, Lanny, Abby, Bite Pusher, Carbot, Carlidon, whole bunch of people in here. Kaya, welcome. Jarrett, hello. Tushiaki, Gakko, Gokai, Bluer. I'm gonna miss a few names here or mispronounce things. I apologize for that. Valum, VNK, Tem, Stefan, welcome. Nice to see some familiar faces in here. Quentin Garud, Noisy Boy, Nick, Mr. Nodded, and more, I'm sure. Thank you guys, the leader one. Hi, welcome everybody. I hope you're doing great. It's really cold here. I don't know what it's like where you are. The sound is way too loud for me. I can't concentrate at all. Turn that way down. I'll put it up a little bit. There we go. I can actually concentrate a little bit now. It's freezing cold. It's like minus 18, and then the wind chill, I think they said it was like minus 25. I was standing at the bus stop like half an hour ago with my kids, just absolutely frozen. They're just playing in the snow, having fun, and I guess I should have joined them because I was so cold. So I'm having a nice coffee now. Try and warm up a little bit. For those who are in the States, I think that's like 0 plus the wind chill, so I don't know how cold it would actually be. Yeah, Among Us was fun this weekend. Thank you for asking, Vroom. It was a lot of fun. You can check back the stream. It should still be here on Twitch if you want to see it. So, there'd be some familiar names in there that you might know. Danny Thompson was there with me. Matt was there, so it was good times. And there's a few people from the community who managed to jump in too. There was David, who was on my Discord. Hope of Glory joined in. It was a lot of fun. It was good. I'll probably be playing again tomorrow at my lunchtime-ish. So if anybody wants to join in a game, come join in the community. There's a section set up just for Among Us. Plus 10 and wet in Geneva. I wish it was plus 10, but not wet. And actually, it was, even at like minus 20, if you're dressed properly and it's not windy, it's not that bad. If it's a nice sunny day and you have like, you know, your stuff on, it's not so bad. But once that wind hits, and I was like, when I go wait at the bus stop with my kids, I put my snow pants on and everything because I know I'm just gonna be standing in the cold. I have my big boots on, like I'm ready to go. I'm warm, but then the wind hits you in the face and it's freezing. So I might be a little slow to get started this morning. I'm still waking up a little bit, but we'll hang out and chat a little, and then I'll jump into. I'd sort of jump back and forth. I just didn't have anything ready, so I'm going to keep going on what I was working on last week. Minus 10 yesterday. Yeah, I mean that's in Germany. It's actually we're supposed to get like 20 centimeters of snow tomorrow, and then it's going to warm up, which is nice. The nice thing is when it snows, it's usually warmer. So, but yeah, I think we're between 10 and 20 centimeters. So, I mean, they don't know how much we're getting, but hopefully, sorry, I should have put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Oh, it's my wife. Even if Do Not Disturb was on, I would still be getting dinged. So with, yeah, they don't know how much snow we're getting, but I don't mind the snow. Snow, once you finish shoveling, as long as it doesn't keep snowing every day, like once every now and then is fine. And I don't have to drive anywhere, so that's fine. It's when it snows and you have to drive, that sucks. Hello from Japan, 9 o'clock at night there. Or no, 11 o'clock at night and -9. Mr. Boston 24, any CSS books you could recommend? I do hack my own, just wanted a good book on my bookshelf. It's a little bit old now, but I really, really like CSS Secrets. I have it, 1 second. Where is it? It's not there. Oh. CSS Secrets by Leah Viru. The thing I really like about that one is even though some of it's old and some of there's some like hacky stuff in it which you don't necessarily need anymore, just because CSS has gotten a little bit better. But the stuff that it's sort of like the way of thinking about how you can do things that are out of the box, which is really cool. And I think that it's a really good book. Once you're comfortable with CSS, it's a really nice book on sort of thinking about CSS in more creative ways. And it sort of helps you start unlocking, like, you know, when you see these tricks that people do and you're just like, how did they think of that? Like, so you sort of breaks things down in this book on a lot of that type of stuff. And it sort of gets you thinking about things in a good way. Hello from India, welcome. Kathir-san? And Minty here from Greece. Is Sass easy to learn for a junior dev? I think what I really like about Sass is it's not a new language, it's sort of a twist on what you already know. And you can, if you want to jump right into the Sass syntax, which is a little bit different, there's no semicolons and all of that, and no curly braces, it takes a little bit longer to get into it because you're also learning the new syntax. If you go with SCSS, and I think it's why SCSS is more popular, it's why I write SCSS, is because it's easier to just add like one little thing at a time. So you can just start by, let's start using mixins today, and that's the only thing that you're gonna add, and the rest of everything you're doing is regular CSS. And then once you start feeling comfortable with mixins, then you get into, let's create my own very basic function, and then let's, you know, get into imports, or not imports anymore, but like partials and all of that. So I think it's not difficult to learn as long as you don't try learning it all at once. I think. Avi, what do I think of CSS in JS? I think it's a really cool tool that lets people do really bad stuff. It's something that if you're using it properly could be awesome. But I think it gets people into bad habits that aren't familiar enough with the advantages of global CSS or globally accessible CSS. So as a tool, I think it's really cool. But like, it's the same with Sass even. Like, if you're not very good with CSS and you start writing Sass and taking advantage of some of the things it can do without realizing the implications of that, it can cause problems. The CSS in JS isn't those types of problems. It's more of like maintainability issues, the main thing I think that you can run into, and just having these like giant code bases. CSS in JS. JSS? Like, there's CSS modules, there's a whole bunch of different ones you can do these days. Resilient, sourdough, yeah, resilient web design. Do I even have, I know that book. There's the link. I would recommend this one a lot. The link's in the chat if you want to check it out. It's free. You can read the whole thing online. I definitely recommend checking that out. Jarrett, what's the difference between Sass and SCSS, and which is better? Or which is better and what's the difference? We'll look at that in a minute. The Leader, you found me yesterday on YouTube and now you're here. Welcome. Thank you for coming and hanging out. I don't have a lot of experience with WebGL, to be honest. I find for what I do, I don't know. I haven't had a big need for it, and some of the things I have done with it, I mean, it seems like there's a bit of setup that needs to do it compared to some other stuff, but I think it's great. I think it's good. Like, I have no negatives on it. It's just I haven't had to dive deep into the world of it yet, so I can't really give too much of an informed opinion, I guess. OT, I mean, OT saying that you learned it all at once and it was quite easy. I do think it depends on your background too. If you're familiar with loops and if you're coming from a JavaScript background, Sass is probably a lot easier to learn. So if you're comfortable with JavaScript or, I mean, any programming language really, and then you're comfortable with CSS, and then you're adding that in, there's a lot of things you'll see that are familiar. Whereas if you're someone who's did more like the HTML, CSS path and you're starting to learn JavaScript and then you're starting to get into that, it might be a little bit more just because you get into like loops and a little bit more logic and stuff like that. Whereas if you don't have like a computer science background and you're more self-taught, or you don't have a JavaScript background, I think it might be a little bit harder. I don't think it's that hard to get into personally, but I hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel, by the way, The Leader. Does Sass create more lines of code than doing it by hand? Not if you do it properly. That is where you know what? I opened this and I forgot that I wasn't on screen. There's Resilient Web Design. Yeah, I would definitely recommend that. But no, if you're writing your Sass properly, then no. If you're doing things in a bad way, then yes, it has the potential for it, which is why I said you have to be careful. If you're learning Sass and you're not comfortable with CSS yet, and you don't fully understand what's being output, then you could create a huge mess of things. But if you're doing it well, then no, I think it's okay. Is it Cathire? I'm gonna go with Cathire. What are we doing today? I'm gonna write a little bit of Sass today and jump into setting up the basics of Sass a bit. And we'll take a look at, you know what, let's start a little bit here. We're a little bit in. We can actually start writing some code. I'm gonna take it easy though today, honestly. I'm just waking up. So, next stream I'm gonna be whoops, not what I want. I know you can't see my screen yet. Sassmeister, can I do it here? I just want to show the differences. Aha, we can. Okay, good. So I'll bring this up just because it makes it easy to show. Minus. Okay, we'll start here. Thank you for the follow. I think a whole bunch of people followed at the beginning too, so thank you for everybody who jumped in and followed. There we go. So this is Sassmeister. I'll throw the link in the chat too for anyone who wants to play with it. The only reason I'm in here is just because it makes it really easy to see the Sass that you're writing versus the CSS that it outputs on this side. So this is something we were playing with yesterday, or not, last Monday I should say. We were diving in a little bit and looking at the basics here. But here I'm going to delete all of that actually, and let's switch this. So if you don't know Sass at all, Sass is a there's Sass, the language, and then there's two different syntaxes. There's the indented syntax, and then there's the SCSS syntax. So the Sass, when you see it written like this, they mean the indented syntax, and so you often hear people call it Sass, but it's kind of confusing when you have Sass and SCSS. So just indented syntax and sassy CSS. So this is CSS that looks, it's Sass that looks like regular CSS. So they're taking the powers of Sass, the indented syntax, and putting it into the way CSS normally looks. And the advantage with an SCSS is you could take a regular CSS file, copy and paste it, or just rename the file SCSS, and it's valid SCSS. Whereas Sass, let's start with Sass. I haven't written actual Sass in a really long time, but what you'd want is, say you want to select your body. Whoops, my keyboard's not the right one. Body. You wouldn't put, like I don't want that. You can see that's actually giving me an error because I'm writing Sass. Is the code big enough for you guys? Can I make that bigger? I'll make it big for a second and then I'll make it small when I start doing a bit more. But if this was Sass, I would do body like that and then I would indent. And the indentation here is what lets it know. So here I could say color is red. Oh no, and there's no semicolons. Color red, background is black. Font size is 1. Actually, we could even do this. Font of, is it size like this? I haven't done the indented thing. Let's see if this works. 1 rem. And style, or font, what's another font one you might do? Whatever, we'll just leave it like that. So if you do something like that, it did work, the font size. So you can see here, this is all the indentation is letting it know where you want different things, and it's the line break that's telling it that it's going on to the next line here. And this I don't use very often, but because say we do font size, whatever, I'm just going to do font style. Style is italic for some reason. So because this is indented from here, it knows that that's part of, like, it wants to all be font things. So this is the indented style, and a lot of people aren't from, like, it's, if you're not used to it, I like it. I think it looks really clean. When I started writing Sass, I went with the indented style. But then because it's easier to teach, I find, and because SCSS is more popular, I made the switch. So if we go to SCSS, it looks like, if I'm just writing something like this, it looks like regular CSS. There's absolutely no difference. It has the semicolons, it has the curly braces, and everything looks exactly the same. The difference is then you can use the fancy Sass stuff like mix-ins and, or it used to be imports, now it's the use, the forward, and all of that stuff. Oh, font family, that would have been a good one to remember. Avi, it'll be when, I think I don't know what day I'm gonna do. It'll be this week when I do the website reviews. I just never had a chance to ping people. I never thought of it. I have to set a reminder. Maybe we'll look at doing that this Thursday if I have time. Fingers crossed. It's a little bit, I mean, in a way, if you know Pug, the indented syntax is a little bit like Pug. Oh, without the brackets, you might be able to get an extension for that, Jarrett. But I agree. I personally, I like the clean look of the indented syntax. But the more I've written SCSS, the more I like it. Plus, like, every now and then, you just want to throw on something that's like, you know, animation. Or it's maybe not the best one, but I don't know. You have something like BG dark, and then you just want to have it as a one-liner, right? Background is black. So if you want to do something like that, like, you can't do that with the indented syntax because you need to have it on 2 lines. It's not a big deal, but it's a little bit of one. I have a new setup now. Do you find it, is the camera shaking a lot? I see it shaking a little bit. I just want to know if on your end if it looks like everything's shaking. So this is SCSS that I'm writing here. SCSS is just taking, Catherine's asking, so it's taking what you can do with Sass, but you're doing it with the curly braces and stuff. Whereas if it's the Sass one, there's no syntax for, like, there's no, it's the indentations. Whereas SCSS, you're writing it like regular Sass, but then you can bring in your mix-ins and you can bring in other things like that. We'll look at creating some of those shortly. Shrimply was asking if I have a playlist for Flexbox. I have one. If you look up, I find it's hard to find, like, YouTube is really bad at showing off our, I just find it's bad for playlists these days for some reason. Like, it doesn't promote them as much. But if you look up my name in Flexbox, I have a 3-part series on YouTube. The CSS, yeah, Jarrett's recommending the CSS Tricks Flexbox, which is awesome. Like, that's a nice little go-to to have. If you're learning, just having that on the side, so if you need to reference it. Same with their grid, like, cheat sheet thing that they made, is really nice when you're trying to learn. People are saying it's not shaking. That's good. I've said I don't have a tripod anymore, or I guess it's a tripod, but I have everything connected to my desk. And I got the same desk for my kids, and it doesn't wobble at all. And mine wobbles just a little bit, and now the camera's, like, connected to the desk. And I don't get why mine wobbles and theirs doesn't, so I have to figure that out. Naughty Babloop, hi. And there's not enough syllables, or, yeah. I'm saying syllables, vowels, that's the word I'm looking for. Not enough vowels for me to know how to pronounce your name, but welcome. I don't want to change my desk. I like my desk. Actually, I do want it. I wouldn't mind a bigger one, but... Codographic? First time here at a live stream, welcome. We have a lot of people here today. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you could all come and join me. Oh, don't change your name, Av. I'll just call you Avs. Avs works for me. No, Naughty, I've streamed a bunch of times now. We're at 69, nice. I try and stream every Monday and other times. Arithmetics, thank you for being here. I am going to do a little bit of stuff on my site in a bit, but I'm not going to, I want to just sort of set up things because speaking of arithmetics, I'm redesigning my site a little bit. Last time I sort of wasn't sure what direction to go in. So I'm going to redesign things a little bit, but what I want to do today is just sort of set up some basic things that, like, I'm not actually going to get anything too specific going. It's more of having like a basic structure in place. So when I do start writing the code, that I can just quickly go through it once the design is ready. Coda, I introduced you to Sass. Now you work with it. Nice. I can call you KR7. I'll try and remember. Your first stream, but you'll come regularly. Nice. I'm looking forward to seeing you in here. It's nice seeing when I recognize people. Your teenager introduced you to Sass. Took me a second there. I was all like, oh, they're writing websites too? My 9-year-old has introduced me to Sass. That kid has an attitude, like, I don't know. He's like, can be the sweetest kid in the world, and then all of a sudden it's just I don't know. Not he's, yeah. Anyway, some of you might have seen him on the weekend if you were watching. The big David, you've started teaching him to code via free code camp. That's a good idea. I tried getting I was showing my younger one, or my older one, some HTML the other day. Or this is when the first lockdown happened, so almost a year ago. He sort of, it was, I don't know. The problem is too, he was learning, like he's in a French school, so his English has actually really improved this year. But just like having to spell things was a bit of a nightmare. So it was sort of hitting his head against the wall a little on that. So we took a bit of a break, but I'm definitely going to get him back into it. He wants to learn how to edit videos now, though, because he wants to start putting stuff up on YouTube. We'll see about that. I'm not too sure, but... It looks like a lot... Welcome, Gio. I'm going to say Jord? Something... My oldest one's 9. He was 8 when we were first looking at it. Looks like a lot of people jumping in for their first time on a stream, so welcome. Thank you for coming to join me. I'm not sure about this music. See if we can't get something a little... I was going for something relaxing, but this is a little... like end credit scenes on a Disney movie right now. It's probably not too loud on your end, but... Let's see if we can't get something a little bit more... I always end up with the same playlist, though. I was trying to find something a little different. Get some jazz? Is that gonna be too... What's this one? We'll try this. Electronic... I don't know. If it's too upbeat at this time of morning, I can't do it. And when I mean, it's different when I'm live streaming because I'm talking and it sort of gets me going a bit. If I'm just doing coding on my own, I just have like really chill stuff going. Yeah, definitely, Coda. I'm looking at doing... I wanted to start it today, but I just wasn't ready at all, actually, of working on a client site where he needs a lot of optimizations done to his website on the CSS side specifically, which is kind of... Usually that's... I always tell people that's like the low-hanging... Like, there's other low-hanging fruit, and then you need the CSS, but in this case, the CSS needs a lot of work. So after that, I'll probably be diving into compatibility and other stuff there. I don't think that's an issue on there, but we could make it something to look at. Jawdies. We'll go with that. This isn't what I thought it would be either. This is just as bad as the last music. It's weird. I'm on... I use Epidemic for the music, just because there's a lot of choice. But they don't have like a good... let's like they're sort of missing some categories, and they have music in those categories, but they call it something different, I think. We could try something here. I mean, I could just go with the one I always go with, but sound effects, special occasions, sci-fi. We'll see what this one gives us. Is it starting? It says it's for tutorials. We'll see what it's like. If it's no good, I'll just go with something I know. Welcome, Veer. I didn't even notice it was you recommending the different music there, Viraj. Welcome. Yeah, no problem, Naughty. No, well, I sort of am. I'm a full-time content creator now. I won't go too deep just because I've talked about it a few times on my stream. And actually, if you want a more of a... let me see if I can find it. I'll share it in the chat. It depends if you like video. I won't link, or do I link to the episode itself? You can find me on here. I'll just link directly to here. So this is a podcast called The Solo Coder where he interviews devs. I did an episode 71. I went pretty deep into my background. And there's a YouTube video too. We didn't go as deep in my background, but I talked about it a little bit. Let's see if I can find it. Francisco, there it is. I'll find this one, I'll find the video. Or you know what, here's another guy who interviews devs. So if you like that type of stuff, there's just his playlist, and you'll find me in there somewhere. So there we chatted a bit too about my background. But I do freelance some projects still. So I mean, I have the client project that I was just talking about, and I do take on freelance work. But now I went from graphic design plus freelancing web stuff to freelancing web stuff and teaching to full-time teaching to full-time content creation with freelance on the side is basically the order I've gone in really quickly. I definitely recommend checking out both of those guys. The Solar Coder is a really cool podcast where you get to find out about. It's really really good. I enjoyed my time on there, but I've listened to some other episodes and I always find them interesting. And Francisco's been killing it with the interviews lately. I think he's doing one a day on YouTube. So if you're into that type of stuff, it's awesome. I guess I should bring up what I'm going to be working on. Let's see. Let me just get things organized here before I share my screen again. There we go. There's not much to see, but here we go. This is what I made last time. Very exciting, right? I can't even see it because my microphone's in the way. Basically, I was taking my website and started to build it out with Jekyll a little bit. I got stuck on something, and I don't... The problem when you work on something once a week is you don't leave notes to yourself about what you're stuck on. Or if you don't leave notes, you don't remember what you were working on last. So I need to do that a bit more often. Is what that comes down to. But what I wanted to look at primarily today was just setting up some basic Sass stuff. Again, not so much for the design of the website or the functionality, but just so when I do start working on the design, I can just start jumping into it. And normally I would do this, I don't create something new every project I work on. It's a little bit of a time sink if you can just reuse a basic setup that you already have. But I figured it'd be not bad material. Plus it's something I want to do a tutorial on eventually on YouTube. I'd probably be a bit more concise there, but and it'll give us a chance, like you guys can ask questions about Sass as we're going and stuff like that. or just project setups or whatever you want. I'm always open to other questions that are completely off topic, so please don't be shy. And just Avi, just really quick actually, Avi was asking about reviewing his site. So I am going to be doing live reviews of websites on here starting this week. I might as well. You know what? I'm gonna just look at my calendar really fast. I'm gonna commit to it for finally doing it. So I just take that off while I look at my calendar. But I will commit to doing this now. Probably on Thursdays. I just want to make sure I have nothing on this Thursday. Oh, it's Groundhog Day tomorrow. I might be live tomorrow as well. Speaking of interviews, I might be doing an interview tomorrow live, but no promises. I'm waiting for confirmation. But if I am, it'll be about freelancing. So if you're interested in freelancing, if you can't make it to that, it eventually will be on YouTube, edited and be on YouTube as well. Yeah, so this Thursday, I will go live with a website review. So if you want me to look at your site, it could be like a personal project you're working on. It could be a code pen that you threw together and you're experimenting with. It could be whatever. The only thing is I'm only going to collect them in the Discord, and I'm only going to open up the channel to like submit things that day. So I'll probably open it up like an hour or 2 hours before I go live. Because I don't want to get like 3,000 submissions in there, and I'm just going to go in the order that I find them in there. But if you're in the Discord, you get a notification when it opens up. Or actually, you know what? Let me open up my Discord so I can show you guys. Because if you do want to be notified, I don't want to announce it to everybody. Thank you, WebDev. Community. I haven't been on here, so I have a whole bunch of dings. Okay, I guess I can share that. Let's just go up to here, and then there we go. So if you do join the community, just when you go to the welcome, if you haven't already joined, you can just get here. Let me just throw it in there. If you do want to join Discord, the link is in the chat. Just here where you choose your roles and stuff. So on this one here, you can choose a role just to let us know, and it's going to give you, like you can see, it's all color coordinated based on the choices people made here, so we just know what type of dev you are. But here in the other notifications, this yes is for live streams, this is if you want to play Among Us, and this one here is if you want a code review, or if you want to know when the channel opens for code reviews. So if you just click on that once you've joined, then you'll get a notification when I open the channel up for, not code reviews, I'm not doing code reviews, I'm doing website reviews. I will look at people's websites, and like I can look at the code, and if you have a specific question, maybe I could dive into something on it. But it's more of just like a quick look, maybe 5 minutes max per project. Just looking at what people are up to, giving advice on the design. And if I find something that I think is like performance issue, or there's something, maybe I'll just use the dev tools to inspect stuff. Or if you have like a code pen with a specific thing, maybe we could look at that too. It's the first time I'll be doing it, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But otherwise, even if you don't want that and you just want to come hang out, the Discord is a nice place for that. So I'd recommend jumping on in there. Whoops, there's my calendar. Nothing important on there though, so. I don't know when I'm going to do it exactly. Like for me, it's 9:40 in the morning now. I'd probably, if I do it on Thursdays, I used to do Thursday afternoon, but I think I'll probably do it in the morning again. So let's say we do 9, maybe 10:30, 10:30, so like an hour, around an hour after where we are now, like 20 minutes to an hour after we are now, on Thursday. So I'll add that in. I probably would do it for like an hour, and just because I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I guess I might be longer, who knows. But yeah, 10:30 Eastern time. And Jared, yeah, to submit for the project, maybe I just answered, but it'd be in the Discord. Actually, I'll bring that back up for a sec. You won't be able to see it right now, but there's a channel called For Review. So it's like you can't see that channel, but when I am accepting reviews, I'm going to open this channel up so everybody can see it. You'll get a notification as long as you check the role. They'll show up in here. And then that later on, I'll close it, and then I'll be going through them. And if we only have 2, then people get a lot more time on it, and if we have a whole bunch, then I'll probably try and get through, but I can't promise I get through everything either. I have no idea. I've never done this before, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, let's jump into my project, I guess, since we're here, and I don't see anybody asking any other questions. Oh, that's not what I want to click on. This is where I wanted to be, but you can see that my window is like a fraction off. There we go. I don't know why it does it. So frustrating. That looks better. Okay. So yeah, if you look here, just in my basic project structure right now, all I have is a style.scss that doesn't have much going on. This normally wouldn't actually have anything in here. So actually, I had a question about this the other day, so I might as well open it up. We'll go back to here. Sass, I always forget guidelines. Guide, I'll just do it like that. If you don't know about this website and you're writing Sass, I would definitely recommend that you check it out. It's an amazing site for just getting like an opinionated style guide for writing sane, maintainable, and scalable Sass. And I think it's really well put. I learned a lot from this. I've modified a little bit how I do things, but I think that it's always a good way to work is start with something that somebody else has already developed and started and works really well. And then if you find that over time you have modifications to make for it, then that's great. In something that works better for you. But this in general is a starting point. I would highly recommend to anybody who's getting into it, or if you're having trouble knowing how to organize your stuff, like definitely check this out. I don't know if he's updated it. Let's just go look actually. I haven't been on here in a while. I'm curious. Tools, introduction. Let's just go look here actually. What am I looking for? About introduction, no. Naming conventions. Commenting architecture. I'm just curious. So yeah, he's still using, I think this hasn't been updated since Dart Sass has become a thing with views and forward instead. So just do be careful. Some of it might be a little bit old. And there might be a few things that he doesn't mention just because Sass is, if you look at the actual Sass stuff now, you'll see a lot with modules, and I don't think he uses the same language necessarily in here. But the one thing that a lot of people ask me about with Sass is the 7-1 pattern. And the idea here is you have your base, your components, your layout, your pages, your themes, your abstracts, and your vendors. I follow something, I started with this and then I modified a little bit. Like vendors you only need if you're bringing in outside stuff, obviously. Themes too, it depends if you're theming stuff or not, so that depends a little bit. And it also depends on how you're thinking about themes too, as well. Then you also notice that he has like layout and pages here. So for me, it depends on the project. So some projects I end up with like almost all of this, whereas some projects I don't. And that obviously it changes depending on the need of your project. But if you start with this and then you find and see what you're doing all the time, I think that's awesome. I've also started with like here he has components, which I still create, but I also have a utilities folder as well, where I have a lot of just utility class stuff, like setting up my container, setting up my flow thing, anything that's like even like background light, background dark, things like that you might use. If you have other utilities that you might want to use. I find it useful to have a utilities folder, even he doesn't do that. I think maybe he doesn't write utilities. I don't remember. Again, I haven't been in here for a while. And in a way, utility classes, you could argue, are less useful with Sass because you can just use like an extend and bring them into individual things. But personally, I think they're still useful. Hellsnake, what should you learn first, Sass or React? I have trouble answering those questions because I don't know. It depends on what you need to know first. Sass is another way. If you're already familiar with CSS, you could just maybe get into React. Do you know JavaScript? I would say learn CSS and JavaScript first, and then worry about Sass and React. I guess would be the right order and the right way to look at it. If you're already familiar with Sass, if you're already familiar with Sass, if you're already familiar with CSS and you're already familiar with regular JavaScript, and you're comfortable with both of them, you could probably start learning both at the same time, honestly. Like you could build a React project using Sass. I don't think it would be that hard. The Big Dave, see ya, nice, thank you for hanging out. What's an NJX? An NJX, oh yeah, we have a whole bunch in here. These are, so I'm creating the site using Eleventy, which accepts a whole bunch of templating languages, and NJX files are one, it's Ninjux. I think is how you pronounce it anyway. It's how I say it. Hopefully I'm not saying it wrong. It's a templating language that outputs to HTML. Basically, it lets me, like here I have like includes and stuff. So you see here it says my layout is using base.njx. So if I go to my base.njx, all this is here. So then it's using this as like a template. I have a whole bunch of stuff commented out because I was having issues. But it's gonna use this as my template. It's going to include my navigation here. So if I go and look at my navigation, I have this as my navigation, which looks weird. It's a templating language, so there's a loop here pretty much. So it's going to loop through all the pages that are part of my nav pages, and then it outputs them. So like this one, it'll turn this one line into a full, like a regular navigation. It looks a lot more complicated than it is, to be honest. And then that will get pushed into here. And then here where it says content safe is, if I go to my index, like right now there's nothing on my index. So if we go back to that page, let's see if we can find it. Is it here? 1 second, I'll pull it up. I don't know where I left it. So like my index has no content on it right now. But if we go back to here and I write like, hello world, how are you today? And I hit save. When we go back, you can see that's been added in here to my index, even though there's no like HTML or anything here. So it's inputting that where I want it to be input into that base. Again, it looks complicated. If you're not used to templating languages, it can look complicated, but it's not that bad. It's a lot like Jekyll, yeah. If you're comfortable with Jekyll, you could probably pick up Eleventy really, really fast. It's like it's Jekyll but built on JavaScript instead of built on Ruby. I like it more. How's this? I'm more comfortable with Jekyll because I used it for a long time, whereas I'm just learning and getting to grips with Eleventy. There's a few things that were a little bit harder at the beginning just because it seems like they're not baked in. But because you can add functionality easily enough, there's lots of people there's tons of plugins which are really handy. Like actually, I'll just look at it really quickly. Which one was it here? Where did I do it? I don't remember where I did it. Courses page maybe? No, I only have the JSON file there. My blog? Where did I put it? Oh, it's probably on my YouTube. This. So like I got their images plugin. So sorry if anyone saw this on the last stream, but I could write this one line here. And this one line, that's on my YouTube page. So if we go to my YouTube page, that one line, with the only thing I had in my source folder was a JPEG file, and it's automatically generating an AVIF, the WebP, and the JPEG at different sizes, and it's setting them all up in a picture. It's setting the width and the height. It's so nice. There's some really good stuff. If you like Jekyll, I definitely recommend looking into Eleventy and just at least seeing what you think. But I also know like my build times are also so much faster than my Eleventy ones. Scrumpy Lungs, you like Sass, but hoping to get more into Tailwind. Would you ever combine? I don't think you would combine them. I don't think you'd have a need to, just because Tailwind is just about using like the utility classes that are like everything is just there, right? So I don't think you would. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't done enough with Tailwind. The picture element, so it depends. I have a series where I looked at images on the web. So I do explain what the picture element is if you don't know it. If you have the different image formats, which I would recommend that you do, and just, does this give me the size? I could look and we could find, let's go find. Does VS Code tell you the size of files? I think you can get extensions for that though, right? I don't think there's anything here that tells me the size. But like, and the advantage here is like if it's a smaller screen or a low res device, it's going to take the AVIF first. And in gen, AVIF and WebP, the file size thing, like AVIF is the newest image format. WebP's been around for a little bit now, and then JPEG has full support, or PNG. But basically, it's going to try and take this one first. If the browser doesn't support an AVIF, it's going to go to WebP. If the browser doesn't support WebP, it's going to go to the JPEG. And then because it's set in a source set here, it will choose between this one, which is 600 by 338, or this one, which is, it's not showing me the size, 300 by 168. So it's going to choose like the better image out of the two to serve up. So if it doesn't need this big one, it's going to load this one in. So you're saving on file size that way too. So, but again, like setting all this up manually is a pain in the butt to do. If you can find a system that can automate it for you, then it's not a big deal. So that's one thing here that's super nice. Because having to generate 6 images for one picture, you know, if you're doing all of that manually, it could be a bit of a time sink. Thank you, Hope. Thank you for the suggestion too. Okay, so we're an hour in and we haven't written any Sass yet. Or we did, I guess, a little bit of it. So let's go and take a look. So the main here, we were talking a bit about file structure. So I'm going to create let's make this bigger in a sec, but I'm going to create a base. Let's make this bigger so you guys can see it a little more. So a base folder, which tends to have my base styling in it. So I'm going to use my base file has like really the things that you'll always have in a project. So you'll have your reset and then like sort of the body styles that you just end up using all the time. Anything that's really global. So typography stuff can end up in there. Anything that is not specific to part of your project, basically. Anything that's like the big scale type stuff. Whoops. The next thing that I like to have is I do like the components, like we said, so I'll make that components. Another one that I do like to have, I said, utilities. So my base components are, I think if you do base first, then you start creating your utilities. Utilities, once you do more work, you sort of get an idea of what type of utilities that you're always going to want to be using. I use it for spacing things, my container, mostly spacing and containers. Some projects I'll have utilities also for like setting background colors. If I have different, like, you know, this is a background accent, this is a background dark, things like that. I'll have utility classes for that as well. So I find it usually, I think of these in a way that I would normally think of CSS as well. Whereas CSS, if I'm writing it, I want to start big picture as much as possible, reusable things as much as possible, and then slowly get more specific. So base is my really global stuff, like my body tag, my selecting my H1 through H6. If I have all of those, my paragraphs, my links, things that are affecting everything, like element selectors that are just super generic. Then once I'm happy with that, I go to my utilities. And you might think of utilities as more specific than components, but utilities are still global in the sense that you can use them anywhere. So if it's setting your, I don't like the font size one so much. And this is, you do get into this whole like battle, right? Of like, when is it better to have a utility class or to write it as part of your regular CSS? And this is where I'm not as big of a fan as Tailwind, just because like Tailwind, everything would just be a utility class. And I like having my CSS more CSS-y and just being a bit more like shorter on the classes, but there is a balance to find there, in my opinion. But this is my opinion, so like don't take what I'm saying, you know, take it with a grain of salt, because this is just how I like writing my CSS. So utility classes are my things that I can reuse anywhere I want. So they're still very generic, but they're not so generic that they're applied to everything like what would be in my base file. Then I'd move into my components, and my components start becoming things like, you know, it's something that can be reused, but it's more like, it's styling that's sort of limited scope a little bit. I want to style my button in a very specific way, and I don't want that to be shared anywhere else. Whereas a utility can be used anywhere I want it to. A button component is something for a button. It could be like a link that looks like a button, or it could be a button, but it's still a button. Or a card. I want that card's styles to stay contained within that card. I don't want it to leak out anywhere. So that's where I get into components. Then depending on the project, you might get into more layout, like you could have layout based stuff as well. So you have your base. You know what, for this project, I think, whoops, I didn't want to make a new file there. I do think that a new layouts. And if you did CSS demystified, you know a bit of like, I like having layout items, selectors that control layout, and then my components that go into that layout. So having that type of deconstruction there can be really useful along the way. If you're bringing in vendor stuff, you could definitely have a vendor folder. I don't really plan on having any vendor stuff coming into this project, so I'm not going to bother. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, let me know. Thank you for the follow, Dynamic. So one thing, and okay, well, let's jump into the base. We'll make a few files in there. So one I usually do nowadays is my root.scss, which seems a bit weird because my root is literally set up just for my root and setting up my custom properties. And if you're going, well, if you're using Sass, why would you be setting up custom properties? But I find that custom properties play super well with Sass. Sometimes it's a little bit weird on how you have to set things up. Oh, I forgot one folder. But I don't know exactly, so I'm just going to put like a color primary for now, because again, I don't have my design done. I just want to make the file so it's here. One other file that I'll always have, and this is what I sort of want to focus on today, is new folder, abstracts. And the idea with an abstracts folder, this is really coming from, well, I don't think it's from Sass guidelines specifically. I think anybody who writes a lot of Sass, and anything you find will have an abstracts folder. So this is things that aren't actually compiled into CSS. And what I mean by that, if you're not, where's my Sass guideline? That's here. Did I close it? I might have closed it. Let's just go here. Sass Meister again. So if you're not familiar with Sass, just really fast, like here, if I write body, whoops, gotta spell properly, body, background is 333, going too fast, 333, that's actually gonna get output and that gets turned into CSS. If I come in and I add a variable of red, and I write red, like this doesn't turn into actual CSS here. There's nothing coming in. So because this doesn't get compiled into CSS, that would be considered an abstract. And the idea with that is then here I could say color is my red, and then that variable gets brought in and gets turned into CSS. So this is my abstract. It's not actual CSS, it's just something that I can reuse throughout my project. So that's the idea with an abstract. And thank you very much for the Prime sub there. I'm gonna say your name wrong. Vidermeis. Vidermeis? I'm sorry. But there you go. Yeah, we'll go with that. Welcome to the channel and thank you very much for the sub. I appreciate it. And I see a whole bunch of follows coming in. So thank you all for your follows. That's super awesome. Thank you guys all so very much. So in my abstracts, usually I'm just really like here, we'll just do variables, variables.scss. The next one we want is a mixins.scss. You don't have to do it like this either. I tend to do it this way, and functions. If I know it's a smaller project, which this one pretty much is, since it's my personal site, and because I'm the only one who's going to work on it, you could decide, like, variables, I've broken that up into colors and into typography stuff. So you could have like fonts and colors, or typography and colors in the abstracts. Mixins, instead of having one file for all your mixins, if it's a bigger project where you're gonna have lots of mixins, you could just make one partial for every single one of your mixins. I don't think there's anything wrong. Like in a bigger project, it's definitely easier to maintain. It could be something that you start on a small project and you have two, and then 2 years later there's 20 of them. Maybe then you break them off into their own files. It shouldn't take very long to do something like that. Same with functions. I tend not to create too many functions. And what you saw before I even started, I was looking at the Sass maps, just because they've changed how it used to work. You used to need a partial. You used to have to create a function to use maps properly, whereas that's sort of gone now. Jared has 712 lines for his mixin file. So there, like for me, I would probably break that up. It doesn't necessarily have to be one file for every mixin. It could be that you have like groups of mixins, right? Like you have mixins related to different things and you make a different file for each. It depends how you like to work though. If it's, or you could just put a table of contents at the top, just so it makes it easy to find stuff. Because when you start getting into really big, oh, did I make a fold? I did. Thank you. Let's delete that. And make a new file. Functions.scss. Yeah, I used to have a few functions that I'd always create, but I don't even know if I need to make anything for this project or not. The media query mixin is by far my favorite mixin. Welcome, Valo. I didn't notice that you jumped in, so thank you for coming in. Nice to see you. So speaking of media queries, like, so this is also like, you know what? I'm thinking, depending on how we want to do it, and it depends a lot on the project too. On my original site, what did I have? I'm just going back to my old files off screen for a second. Abstracts, mixins. So yeah, I'm gonna go to my so here in my variables, I could create, normally I'd have my colors and everything at the top, but I'm gonna move stuff around. Well, let's just come in with breakpoints. Whoops, wrong. Breakpoints, there we go. So if you do a variable in Sass, I could do like a breakpoint, say small, of 40M, and then I could have a breakpoint large at 65M. I could do something like that if I wanted to, and then have one for each. But you know, if you step things up a little bit, you can do break points, and then come in. And I haven't talked about it in a while. I think this is when it becomes a list, right? Which is pretty much a map. So I have small 40M. I mean, it looks almost like a JSON file at this point, and medium of 65M. It's a map. And so if you have a map like this, I said list, but it's really a map. When you have a map like this, you can use the get map function in Sass to pull things out of here automatically. So I have a breakpoint of small and I have a breakpoint of medium now within one declaration pretty much, instead of creating a different one for each. And then we'll create our mixin here and then move it so we can look at what this is doing. So mixin, you call it whatever you want. Mixin MQ for media query because it's faster. And what do we need this mixin to do to actually work properly? So the whole idea with this would be it's inserting a media query, right? So at media screen only screen. I always put screen only screen, and min. You don't really need the only screen, but min width of, and then I want it to use a breakpoint. So I'm just going to put a breakpoint, and then in here I think I just need a content like that. So this is where I need to be able to get a breakpoint. Yes, right? So up here I need to be able to get it, and you could call this different things. Actually, I don't know if I can write it like this now that I think of it. But I'll leave it like that for a second, just to say this is like where I want to be able to change the different thing I'm getting. And so we're gonna, here I want to be able to write something. Let's just write something here. Whoops, $sign. Where's $sign? There it is. Breakpoint. So like the idea is I can go, if I'm writing my code, so say I say body is font size 1 rem, and then I want to do at MQ, write in, I just want to be able to write small. And then here I can do a font size of 2 rem, just for fun, just to show like how something like that would work. Like this is the idea. That's not going to work right now because I can't just write in small because it doesn't know what small is here. So we have to set this up a little bit differently. And this is where I wanted to look at, because I know they changed how the map get works a little bit, but I don't know if we need to worry too much because I think the basic level of the map, I think, is exactly the same. I think they just made it easier to do like deep dives into the breakpoint, into maps. So if you have nested maps now, which can be really useful, I think they just made that easier by, yeah, you can do this So it looks a little weird with the ABCDs, but I think it... Deep merge, merge, map. Oh, that's for their merges, okay. And remove... See, I don't map get. Map, keys, keys. Yeah, it looks, I think at a basic level, it's exactly the same as what it used to be. You even see here it's saying on the old Ruby Sass and the lib Sass that like this isn't going to work. A lot of the stuff that's in the Sass map, because that's their built-in modules now. We used to call it functions. Now they're switched to the modules for a lot of this stuff. So it doesn't work in lib Sass or Ruby Sass. That's why you used to have like a get map nested inside of a get map, was the old way of doing it. Jarrett, you do have a table of contents at the top. There you go. That's awesome. You don't need to have a base file either. It's just how I like to work. So let's get this map working. Hopefully I can actually get it working. And I know that they've changed. I just want to zoom out because everything was a little big there. So we need two things here for this to work, right? We need to put in the... I'm just trying to think. If I only want to write small, because here we need to use... Okay, if we do... I need a map get. Size. Size... Because the map is always, if it was a different, if we needed something, like we could set this up to have two different, I'm just like, I could have two different things coming in here. But because it's always going to be looking at this map, I don't think we need to bother, right? Because here we can just do a map get. And my map is, we don't have to set it up like that, I don't think. Can't you just do it? My map is breakpoints. Whoops. Breakpoints. So this is the map that I want to look at. So here's the map we're looking at. And then what I want to change is this part here. Like this I want it to be dynamic. So it's always going to get this map and then break. I'm just going to put breakpoint, breakpoint. Is that going to get too confusing? And you never really look at it. Breakpoint, break. I don't know. I can just call it a key too, or whatever. Like this could literally be anything. Let's call it point, just to distinguish the two a little more. So then here I put point, and then here I could put size. So the idea here, it's not include, it's at include, MQ. So if you look here, what we're doing, if we break it down a little bit, is when I write include MQ small, it's going to take the word small and it's going to input it right here. So this map get is going to go into breakpoints, and then it's going to look for small, and it's going to take this, so it finds small, it finds this number, and then it inserts it here. And then I get my thing. So if we did this properly, I should be able to hit save, and we should be able to go back to my site, which I think is here. Nope. Which window did I have it open in? This one. Actually, I might have set font sizes up already. No, let's just go look at the compiled CSS and see if it worked, or if I got an error. Maybe we should see for errors first. I got an error. Oh no. No source map. What? Did I do something wrong? Or did it just crash out on me? Did it compile properly? Let's go look. CSS, style. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. So this isn't, because it's I did it in my functions, variables. I did it all here. Because this is all in my variables, this isn't actually getting output anywhere, right? So I need to tell it where to use that now. So if I go to my, I don't have, here, style. So here, let's just do it. Actually, I have to do it at the top. @use. I want to be able to use my abstracts slash, that was all in my variables for now, right? So we can just say that, save, and if we go look at my compiled CSS, there we go. Did it work? It worked. So you can see that it got output into my CSS file now. Cool, so we know it's working. You can see that the right number came in, so the 40. So actually let's split this off on the side, just so we can see it in action. So here, it's 40. If I change this here to large and hit save. Oh, did I not have a large? Oh, medium, whoops, medium. Hit save, and then the 65 gets put in there. So we can switch it medium, small, and it goes back and forth. We could use an if-else statement here too to check to make sure that we didn't make a mistake in here. Because you can see there, if I do large, it compiles, nothing tells me it's not working except here. So like if you do a large, ideally you'd get some sort of warning or error in your code too. So it's something to, just be careful with. If you're working on a team, 100% you'd want to do that. If you're working on your own, you're doing a personal project, you can, but did somebody ask me about compiling the CSS? I wouldn't use watch Sass in VS Code anymore. Or is this called watch Sass? I still have it. Where is it? Watch Sass. Yeah, I'm not using it. It's outdated now, so you can't use a lot of the new functionalities. It's based on the Ruby Sass, and they haven't updated it in forever. So just be careful with that. So the idea here, actually, just in case you're new to Sass in general, this idea where the @use is saying that, and you know what, I'm going to make a change here, because normally I wouldn't write it this way anyway. So the idea is that we have a file here. If it has an underscore at the beginning of it, it's telling Sass that it's a partial file. So this isn't a file that should become its own CSS file, right? Like if I look at my project, let's just... Oh no, I have to fix that. Okay, that's okay. Those should all be in my posts. Oh, they are all there. And they're here? Or do I just have that many pages? I'm gonna have to double check what happened there. But I don't want like all of those little Sass files becoming CSS files. I only want them all to end up in one CSS file at the end. So if you start with an underscore, you're telling it that it's a partial and it won't turn that into a CSS file. If you don't start with an underscore, it assumes you want that to be compiled and it will turn it into its own CSS file. Now, when you do that, you need to be able to make sure that you're coming in and, sorry, you're coming in and then you have to use it somewhere, right? So like now I'm gonna, if you're used to the old Sass, like this used to be an import. So import has been deprecated for either use or forward, which there's a small difference between. I'm not going to get into it right now, but there is a difference between those. But in general, you're going to use most of the time. The forward can be useful. It depends on how you like setting up your projects a little bit. So if you're importing the old words, but if you're importing everything the old way, where you'd have like, or not the old way, but like here I have a functions, a mixins of variables. Sometimes what you do is inside this abstracts folder, you'd make one abstracts, and that one abstracts would import everything into it, and then you'd bring that abstracts file into here. If you're doing that, I think you'd have to use forward instead of use. But what they've changed with use compared to import is that in the old days, we used to just bring everything in and you could use it however you wanted to. Whereas now, let's come into here. I'm going to get an error, I believe, because normally you wouldn't have this in your variables, right? You don't want, this is, even this, we'd want to split it up. I'll leave it here for now and then we'll split it into two files. But ideally, you'd have your, actually this would be on my, this would go into my base file. We'll move that there in a second actually to see how all of this would work. But ideally what we would do is, let's just take all of this and put it in here. So now I got an error there, I think. If we go, yeah, here, onDefined mixin. And you go, but I define, and even here, onDefined mixin. But why are we getting an onDefined mixin? I created this mixin, it's in my variables, and how come it's not working? Even though I'm loading it in here. So this is, they've added like, when you're bringing in things, they've added in scoping now. And I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm actually going to go look at the docs before I use it. But now, like, this media query is, it's scoped to here. And the idea is you could have, like, say you have a variable of black, and you have a variable of black in 3 different files. They would overwrite each other originally, whereas now you can actually have variables with the same name in different places. And because everything gets, like, scoped to that file, it makes it easier. It can make projects easier to maintain in the long run, is basically what it comes down to. I think it would just be, is it? Let's see if I got it right. I haven't. There we go. So I'm doing variables.mq. So I'm taking my media query out of my variables file. So first I have to declare my @use at the top to say I want to be able to use this, and then I need to pull it in right here. And I need to do it through name, doing that. Now you can also change that here. I can say as v, I think. Is this going to work? Or does that go inside? Let's try. And then this could be a v. Am I going to break that? There we go. I'm right. Okay. Better memory than I thought. So if you don't want to have to write variables every time, you could do this, where you do abstracts, variables, and then you're renaming what you're calling it when you need to call it down here. So instead of doing variables.mq every time, you could just do v.mq. If you don't like that idea, you could do a star, and then the star means you don't need to name it, and you can just do it the old way, I believe. Save. Yeah, it looks like I'm getting an error, but I'm not. Let's just change this size to a 3, just to see if it's compiling. Yeah, it's compiling. So yeah, if you do as star, it means you can write it the old way that we used to always write it. If you put, this could be whatever you want, ABC. ABC means you do an ABC here, abc.mq. No? Whoops, I forgot my semicolon. There we go. Or you don't put anything, and then you write the name of the file. Variables. Just like that. So it's a little bit different. Yeah, I've been using imports up until really recently. The other really big difference with this is you used to be able to, so here where I'm importing my variables here. So let's just take this. This is going to give me an import, like I'm going to get an error now. Because what you used to be able to do is import everything. So here @use, and we'll do base/base. I know it doesn't exist yet, so we'll put that there. This might give me an error because the file doesn't exist. So we'll go into my base, new file, base.scss. So I used to be able to do this, where you could do an include inside of here. But you'll see it's actually getting an error. So the old way of working if you're using imports is, I want my style. Whoops, wrong button. Style. The old way of working is, as long as you called, like here if this was imported, if you did an import abstracts variables, then you could bring this in after. And because it's a little bit like the cascade, whereas if something came after, those variables were getting brought in. So you'd bring in the variable, and then you could bring in your other files that were using those variables. You can't do that anymore. So now, in my base file, because I want to use my variables, I have to use it here. @use abstracts/variables, and now it should work, right? So, oh, do I have to go back a step? Did I misspell something? Oh, semicolon. Ah, there we go. Okay. So you have to go and import. It's a little bit like when you're writing, like if you're with a lot of JavaScript these days, right? So here I have to say I'm using this variables to be able to use it here in this file. So every file you want to use it in, you have to bring it into. And it doesn't leave this file. It's being brought into here and it's stuck here, and that's it. that's where forward comes in. So you also have an app forward, which would bring in my variables and also output my variables. So it's a little bit different. I'm not going to go into it right now, but it's a way of, you can bring it in and then re-export it out of this file. If you do that, it also re-scopes it. So then it would be scoped to my base.css instead, or not instead, I guess for both. But a little bit of a difference right there. Yeah, Hope of Glory, exactly. It's sassy. So they call this it's literally sassy CSS is the idea behind it. So it's CSS with Sass's capabilities. If you don't indent, Sass won't compile. So yeah, if you're writing like if we take this, actually I don't even know how to do this one. I guess it is at use, but like if we were writing regular Sass here instead of SCSS, it would look something like that. And if you had no indentation, it wouldn't work because it requires line breaks. The line breaks are important. The line break is what's going to give you your semicolons, and the indentation is what's going to replace your the squiggly braces, curly braces, mustaches, whatever we want to call them. Programmer 2008. I just put a video out a few weeks ago just on getting it set up so you can use Sass. I don't look at any of the functionality in that one, but it's using Parcel. I think it's one of the easiest ways just to get up and running and at least have something that's working. So you could check that out. I am planning, I put a poll up on the weekend for my patrons to ask if they wanted me to look first at 11t or first at Sass, and Sass got a lot more love. So a week or 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be doing a bunch of Sass content. This is going to be starting up on YouTube. When you're not using a framework, what do you suggest? I suggest just using Sass. You know, you can, if we started a new project, file, new window. Let's just make a new file here. Actually, no, file. I'll just open folder. I'm going to be doing Sass in this anyway. It's an upcoming project. So like if I wanted to use Sass with nothing else going on, nothing else, I would set it up. Again, I would use what I did in my video where I use Parcel personally, because then it's easy to get auto refreshing. If you need browser sync, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. But here, you need to have Node installed. So anytime if you see a demo of anything and you see them writing npm, just know you have to have Node installed. And I think you actually have to do an install, like a global install of Sass first, which I already have. Whoops, global install Sass. I think you need to do that. I didn't do that in my tutorial online, so I apologize for that. But yeah, I would do an npm. If you have npm installed, I would start off a new project with an npm init y. It sets up things so you can start doing stuff, and then npm install. I'm going to do a save dev. Whoops, we'll just do the big D. Save dev, and then Sass. I think that's enough. And now I should be able to do, let's just see if this even works. A new folder, SCSS. So here let's just say Sass v, see if it's installed. Looks like it. So I think I can just do a Sass watch, and then I need to tell it what to watch. So I can say watch my SCSS folder and go to the CSS folder. And so now if I go in here and make a example.scss, body background is red, it's compiled it. If we go look, example.css, we have a background of red. So just like that, I'm started, I'm up and running, Sass is working. This is the new, like if you're doing an install Sass here, it is a JavaScript version of Sass. It's not the Dart version, but they're parallel. They work Like it's based on the Dart version. So you're using Dart Sass effectively. Oh no, it was in way of the commands. I'm sorry. I'll go back over that in a second then. Here, let's just do... let me pull this up so I can see myself. Sorry about that. There we go. So if we go back in time, so first you want to install Sass. So just make sure you have like Sass install, node installed, so you can use npm. Or if you prefer Yarn, you can go Yarn. But the init-y just sets up your project, and then and the -y here is if you do an init without it, it asks you like 7 questions or something. So you're pretty much just committing to the defaults, and then you can go and replace them after. That's setting up your package.json file. Then the capital D here is really important. So this is, I can make it bigger even. So yeah, the capital D there is really important because it's short. It's the faster way of writing save dev. So you just want to make it's, if you write it the other way, it's hyphen hyphen and all lowercase save hyphen dev. So it's just faster to write it like that. So that installs Sass into this project. And then this is the one to tell it. So this is just like watch this folder and output to this folder. If you look at the Sass documentation, you can go a lot deeper into this. So there's ways of watching specific files. You can even have it watch one file, change its name to output to a different, like a file with a different name. But this is like the easiest way to set it up. You might also say like go from my source file to my public folder. So you could tell it to go from different folders, everything here. But just as a really basic run through, you can do that. And again, you might need to do, before you can do any of that, oh, I didn't push enter. If you get an error when you try running Sass, you might have to do an npm install global Sass like that. So if you get an error at any point about Sass being an unrecognized command, this will just install Sass on your machine globally, so you can use it in your projects afterwards. That looks about right. Thank you for the follow, Naughty Baloomp. I didn't need the terminal font so large, sorry. I never know how big to make things. It's the easiest way. Lil Saf's asking about converting CSS to Sass. I mean, because as long as you're writing SCSS, CSS is compatible. And actually it used to be that you'd have to rename your files. You can actually import regular CSS into a Sass file now. So like I have .scss, I could do an @use and bring in a regular CSS file. So yeah, it's easy. You can just start adding the stuff to it, breaking your file apart, but not actually changing anything in those files. It's valid, so there's no problem with it. So the watch command means it's every time you start your project. Like if you close VS Code and open it again, you'll have to run that again because it's setting up. Oh no, yeah, you'll still have to run it again. It sets like the watch going. The disadvantage with the watch command is it's going to recompile your CSS file every time, which is awesome, but you're not getting any live browser reloading or anything like that. So if that type of thing is important to you, setting up with Parcel to me is the easiest way to get started. But again, then if you need like browser sync, I've looked into browsers. You can definitely get browser sync working with, and the only Parcel will reload your browser for you. It just doesn't, like here, I'm using Netlify, 11t, and actually with 11t, the nice thing here, let's just cancel it. npm run start. Whoops, npm start. The advantage here is it's setting. This is using browser sync. The advantage of browser sync is it's setting up with a local host, and you can actually get it externally, so you can test on multiple devices super easily. So like I could have my phone going at the same time, seeing the updates live on my phone or on an iPad or whatever it is, and just have everything locally done there. Whereas if you're setting up with Parcel, the default settings won't allow for that. But if that's not a big deal, honestly, it takes like an extra 30 seconds to get started with Parcel, other than the npm install probably, which might take a while to download everything. But But yeah, every time you start your project, you just open your terminal, watch, tell it what to watch, and you're off and running, and it will work. Sass maps are amazing. And it's actually, Sass maps are the reason that I didn't go with Snowpack. Because Snowpack, I really like Snowpack, which is another, instead of Parcel. Snowpack's really, really cool, but Snowpack 3 just came out, so maybe I'm gonna see if it's still an issue there or not. But basically, every time you make it, if you look in your file, actually, are maps on right now? Let's go look. I don't have a map being output. Why don't I, how do I turn my maps on then? Let's go to the other one then. Do I go to the other one, or I should look at how to turn my maps on? Because I use Sass maps all the time. See, I made a mistake there too. I did something wrong because I shouldn't have a base file. See, I didn't underscore base. So because I didn't underscore base, when I save my files, it's compiling it and turning it into its own thing here. So that's why you want to underscore everything. I didn't realize that until just now. Why am I not getting a Sass map by default? Let's go check it out. Because I'm trying to think when I set this up. Oh, I might know why. Let's go to my, here. That's why. No map. No source map is on. I was using a template from Levity Rocks by Stephanie Eccles, which is why this was already set up for me. So I just need to go in here, close this, take this off. The build one, I'll leave that one there for now. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna take both off actually. I like having Sass maps on personally. So let's go try that again. npm start. So we should get a map now. There you go. So you can see this map came down here at the bottom. So what a map is, if you come and look at it, you'll never understand what it is. It's not meant to be looked at here. What it's doing is, if we go and, actually let's do something on my page. Here in my base, I'm also gonna say, or actually we're okay, we have some stuff set up. So if I go and look at my project, the big font size now that we have, if we don't have maps on, it's gonna tell you, actually I shouldn't have put the map on at the beginning, but it's okay. If we come in here and you see active has a font size of 2M, and it's actually telling me it's in my SCSS file on line 5. Or if we come and header, I'm just trying to see if we can find something else in here, body. Or yeah, here we go. So this is like in my SCSS, but in my base file. So it's even telling me like what file it's coming from. So if you have a whole bunch of partials, you can find out what partial it's coming from. Whereas if you don't have a map on, and so if we go back, I'm not going to actually, I can't do it. But if you don't have a map on, it's just going to say like CSS line 247. So you don't know, if you're trying to troubleshoot, it's harder if you don't have your maps on. Whereas with a map, your dev tools tell you where it is, like your exact place. That makes sense. Programmer, the extend syntax. So here, let's body's a bad example. Let's say, let's just say I do a regular link, which just has a text decoration of none. And then I come in, you gotta spell decoration properly. Decoration of none. And then I come in with a .btn and I give it padding of 0.5m, 1.25m, and a background of red. Background of red. And a color of white, and I hit save. Obviously it's two different things here. But then what I could do is I could say @extend my A, and you'll see it's adding to this selector here, it's adding the .btn to get the text decoration of none. I mentioned in my last stream though, you want to be really careful with extends. They can output some really bad selectors if you're using nesting at all. And a big part of Sass is nesting. So you just want to be really careful with extends. In general, what I would suggest is instead of that is having something, it's the example I looked at last time. But if you have this as a placeholder, whoops, a placeholder. So in Sass, if it starts with a percentage sign, it's a placeholder. And then I could come in with my btn primary, color white, background red, and then I could do an @extend of my btn. And then I could have another, like a secondary blue. I see if even it works with your spelling mistakes, and it's gonna set things up. Oh, secondary. So it's setting both, like one selector for the padding, because they're sharing this is pretty much what it's saying. So like if you want selectors to share something, that's where the extends come in. Just be really careful. If you're going to use them, be very careful with them though. If you're not too sure, then I would stick with mixins. If you're not sure, like if you don't know if it's going to do something bad, use a mixin instead. Extends are better for drier CSS. Your file size can be smaller, but it can also cause heaps of trouble. Hi, Coder's Gem. I'm going to have to take a short break, everybody, but I'll be back. I'll turn the music up a bit. I'll be back in like maximum 5 minutes, probably less. So yeah, I'll let you all, you can all stretch and get some water. That's what I'm going to go get, and I'll see you soon. There we go, I'm back already. Ahead of time. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, go reload those coffees. I'm not going to jump back into things just yet, so if people are still waiting for my break, you won't miss anything. FrexP is asking about mobile first or PC first. Yeah, I always start mobile first. I have a whole course on why I do that. Cyorgi saying content first, mobile first, then desktop, but it's more fluid than those big steps. Yeah, definitely. It's not super straightforward a lot of the time, but it's more one of those things that, like, if you're looking at it, I just find, like, if you, as Cyorgi said there, if you do your content first, so you're setting up like you're setting up like the big things first. A lot of the time, most of your website's done for mobile. Not everything. There's always exceptions. There's always complicated little components. There's your navigation. There's everything else, but you can do so much just with some basic styling. Thank you, programmer. One of my article source files, sure thing. I know you can't see my screen. We'll get there in a second. My articles are markdown files, so there's not much to look at. Posts. Oh, that's, whoops, I'm looking at the compiled public version. That's not going to help. Posts. There we go. Let me show my screen. Whoops, this one. There's the new one. Okay. Yeah, it looks something like this. Without that. So I always have they're just markdown files. So I get the title and I can add a description. There should be a description there. Usually I have descriptions on them too. Well, we found a couple that don't. There we go. So title, description, readability. But yeah, and then I just have markdown going for the rest. And I created this little thing. So with 11T, I'm going to have to see. This is something I created myself to do like if you go on my actual page. If you go into here, articles, yeah, so like the read more button. So like I set it up so this would indicate where to finish and put the read more button. And then the article would get generated based on the rest of it automatically. Because it's just markdown, like I could show you the HTML file, but there's not much to see. It's just paragraphs and headings. There's nothing else to it. And this is because it's using the templating. What's happening is it's taking that markdown file, it's inputting that into, let's go to my includes, article. Oh, this one won't have it all. We'd have to find my old one. But basically it was just putting it into a really basic articles template, and then the template isn't much. Like if we go even on the page and we look at the source code, basically it's putting my header that has like my head that has all my social links, my body, it has the navigation being input, and then everything, the markdown file is getting inserted here. So like my articles template is just this article class equals article close, that's it. And then inside there, oh, that's all my articles. Whoops, let's go look at an individual one. I was like, whoa, what happened there? So here, article. So inside there, the markdown just gets put in. So there's nothing too fancy. The IDs are automatically generated. They're exactly it's all my headings have one on it. I wanted to put in that like link functionality where someone could link to a heading. But I never put it in, but it's just automatically done. I think it was even with Jekyll, like I didn't even have to do anything. There's like a configuration thing that you could flip pretty much and turn that on. So it's just every heading gets an ID on it, and then it's a whole bunch of paragraphs. There's really nothing too complicated going on. It is on a grid. I wouldn't have set the grid up like this. Like when I redo my site, I'm not going to set the grid up like this because every item was getting its own. The only reason I did this were this, see how this goes longer? The title and the subtitle, this is just the first paragraph. Like the first paragraph is always a larger font size. I just wanted it to be bigger than the rest. There's better ways of doing it. I was experimenting with grid at the time though, and I wanted to see if it was possible. So it is possible, as you can see. It worked out well in a way, but I probably wouldn't have set it up this way if I did it again. Oh. That would probably be it. Hope. I didn't even notice that. Did I put some of the... Oops. Were some of those... Was this where I was 2 seconds ago? I guess so. It's my only VS Code that's open. Posts. Did I put some capital and some not? That would definitely... they should all be lowercase. Aha, so there's why it wasn't working. So I guess Jekyll was smart and that it would take it either way. Whereas here, it doesn't like it. 11T is not happy with my capital T's. The only thing that's different too, I have my little include here to go to the call to action, which is broken right now, I think. There we go. Oh, there was a broken one. Anyway, I'm not going to fix all that now. But yeah, they should all be lowercase. So that might fix those problems I was having. You guys can hear me? Yeah, okay. I saw something about being unmuted. Alex, can custom properties be used with Sass functions? Example, lightning color. No, they can't. That would be cool. The reason you can't do that is because when Sass, if you're using a Sass function, let's go take a look. This music's pretty relaxing. Should we make a function? Okay, we'll make a function. No, we won't make a function. Let's just go to my base file here. Let's rename it so it stops compiling. I saw a question about the Sass API. I've always done it this way, so I can't give any. You just mean like I'm using the JavaScript Sass instead of Dart Sass. I just don't want... If you have a really big project and you want your Sass file to build in an instant, you'll want to install like the Dart version of it. It's going to be faster, but... Git commit, which template am I using? I'm creating something with Jekyll, 11T. Jared, you avoid the shift like it's... No, it wouldn't have. I don't think anyway. Let's go look. I doubt it though. CSS, it's probably still there. It's still there. I'm not sure actually. Let's see. Cancel. If I do I want to do a build? npm build. Let's see if that deletes it. Oh, I need arguments. Why do I need arguments? I haven't run this on... Whoops, wrong one. Package. Is it not build? Scripts, watch Sass. It is build. npm run build Sass. Can I do that? Did that delete it? I'm not sure if it even would. No. In general, I mean, if you ever need to, you can just delete your whole, like everything here is getting put into public. So if you know you've made a lot of changes, and often it's really common that you won't put your public will get ignored anyway. So if you're uploading it to GitHub or something like that, it's not even there. So npm start and then just rebuild it. So it sort of clears out all the crap that I'm not using. But yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, if we, whoops. Yeah, let's just save. So this is the one problem with static site generators. Every time I'm saving, you can see it has to rebuild the whole thing. But again, it's pretty fast. So it's, I'm doing it in less than a half a second. So I'm not too concerned about that. So let's go look at my base file here. So we can, let's just save these so they're saved. We can close it. So actually, I'll open one more thing. Public CSS. I just like having this on the side so we can see what it's actually getting compiled into. So let's say here on the background color, one thing you can do with Sass, which is super nice, is you can come in here and say lighten. And actually I like the mix one the most, but I can say lighten red by, is it %? I always forget because I don't use it as much. Yeah, so lighten red by 0% is going to give you red. But if I say lighten it by 10%, it's lightening it, and it's outputting this color. Or I could say 20% or 30% or whatever I want. The only issue I have with lighten, and I use lighten and darken, they're nice for making color schemes and stuff. The only issue with them is you have to be really careful because like lighten by 50%, I'm already at white. Or I don't, and it's really hard to judge when you're going to hit that white limit or the black limit. So it seems like 50% is what's getting me there. And you can do a darken as well. So these are built-in Sass functions. So you can generate color schemes a little bit with that, which can be handy. And you can do this with Sass variables. So if I have, let's just throw in here just to make life easy. If I have red, or let's just say color is red. So I could bring that Sass variable in here, where I could say that this is my color. So I want my background color to be my color, but I want to lighten it by, or darken it by 40%. So it's going to output, it's going to take color, it's going to look at what that is up here in my variable, and then it's going to darken that by 40%. Whoops, sorry. So that works and it outputs the color right there. You can't do this with a custom property though. And the reason for that is here we're always outputting, Sass always outputs like a finished state, right? So it's outputting an actual color. Actually, I didn't realize it. It's also doing the oh no, never mind. So if I try doing this as a custom property instead, we could do that right here in my body. So if I just say color is, we'll do a different color just so we can see, blue. If I try doing this with my var color, it will give me an error because it can't take, it doesn't know what to do with this basically. It doesn't know what this is, and it's something that could change. Because it's a custom property, like I could go into JavaScript and manipulate it, or I could have it redefined in 4 different places in my file. So because like custom properties need to stay custom properties all the time to be able to function properly. So one way around something like that, if you really needed to do it, you could have a custom, like it's a little weird, but you could define a custom property in your root and then set like your variable to, oh no, that still wouldn't work. Never mind, that's not a way around it. You can't do it. There's nothing you can do to get around that, sorry. And I did mention just before that I'm not a huge fan, whoops, of the darken and lighten. And again, I've used them in projects. So the other thing you can do instead of that is you can do a mix. Whoops. And I find mix gives me more, I don't remember who it was that I read this from. It was a blog article somewhere, because I used to always use lighten and darken, and I would get frustrated because you'd run into these times where it's too light or too dark. But if you use a mix instead, so mix lets you mix 2 different colors. So you could literally mix like blue, red, and it gives you purple. So here, instead of my red, I could put my variable, or actually let's do blue, red, and then I forget how to do it. Is it 40%, and then it outputs, and then, you know, I can do 10%, and it's going more toward the red. So that means it's 10% blue, 90% red. 50% would be 50 of each. So if I did 90%, it's 90% blue with a 10% mix of red. So it's almost perfectly blue. The other cool thing with this though is you could do it with your variable. So I could set my variable here of color. And then here use white. So I'm mixing, so you have your white, and then you have like you're adding 10% of white, and then you could have another one that's at 80%, and you're adding 20% of white, and then another one. So you know, like this one's easier to control because you know if it's 100% that you're getting pure red, or if it's at 0, you're getting pure white. So you have like a set limited scale. Whereas when you're using lighten and darken, for every color, it's going to be different when it hits pure white or pure dark, pure black. Whereas if you're just playing with this, and then you're, whoops, if you're playing with your white and your black here, and then you're just toying with this number a little bit, You know if you're at 0%, you're at pure black. You know if you're at 100%, you're at pure your color, and you have a scale that you can work with. Have I ever had a problem with live server in VS Code? It's not working for large screens. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Oh, they're saying to use... Thank you for that, Andy. Color adjust. Whoops. Let's go find that. Color adjust. See, I have a whole bunch of stuff I need to learn here. Where would that... It's in color probably here, right? Oh, there you go. Color adjust. So how does color adjust work? Oh, wow. Okay. I'll show you. I saw a question about debug, so we'll look at what that is in a second. You know what? I don't... That seems really... I mean, it's kind of cool because you can adjust the... Oh, you have the lightness and the hue and stuff in there. That's kind of cool. So you can adjust every single... So even if you're using like a hex code, you still get like your hue adjustments or your lightness and darkness adjustments. Or blackness, I should say. That's really powerful. I still like the mix one just because it's easier to use. So let me just see if I can... So color.adjust. See, this is also like these modules now. So this would be color.adjust. Adjust. And then, so here, if I did red... wait, where do I put... So yeah, you put your color first. So red, and then I could say lightness. And is it just... So no, you minus 10. What happens? There's no module with the namespace of color. Oh, is it just adjust? What did I do wrong? Oh, I want to use adjust. Oh, so whoops. Adjust. Whoops. Adjust color. Ah, there we go. Okay. So adjust color instead of mix. And then minus 10, minus 20, minus 90 is already at black. 70. So it's, for me, this, I mean, if you're just doing it for lightening or darkening, you still run into that problem of not knowing when you're going to hit pure black or pure white based on your lightness value. But I see this being super awesome just in that you can adjust like any values that you want, right? So you have access to all of them in one instead of, so I could see that being awesome, really good. But I still like the idea of mixing with white and black just because it's a nice, reliable scale. Oh, for the debug. So here, like when I'm doing this, it's actually outputting it here. If you want to do it, like a debug is to show you, here, let's just do it. It's easier to do it through example at debug. And I'll just take the same thing so I don't have to write anything. And instead of outputting something here, oh man, doesn't it out... here it is. So it outputs it in your command line. So because this is like outputting so much stuff, just because I'm doing it with 11t and it's rebuilding my site, it's not the best. But if you were just doing this with like a regular Sass build or something that doesn't have this long list coming out, or I could turn off, like for me now it's showing me everything it's writing with 11t. I could probably turn that off just so I could focus on what debug is. But debug is just going to, in a case like this, what it's going to do is show me exactly what I put here. So it's, instead of compiling to here, it's showing me here. Where debug is more useful is what I was saying before with like your mix. If you're creating in my variable, right? Variables. So what you could do in here is have an if statement. So at if if I'm just trying to remember how to do it. I'm not going to do it live because I'm going to muck it up. But you could say like if it's not small, if it's not something that exists in here, in your debug, you can put it as a debug or even a warning or an error. Because there's at debug, which shows it to you. There's at warning, which throws a warning, and there's dot error, which throws an error. So you could actually have it throw a warning. I wouldn't use debug probably. I'd probably use warn. You have it throw a warning to say that like that breakpoint that you tried using doesn't work. Take it easy, Bake. Thank you for coming and hanging out. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'm not going to be on too much longer anyway. Silent Bite. Yeah, the benefits of SCSS over vanilla CSS. I mean, mixins are one of the big ones. Nesting, the ampersand, like Valoa said, with nesting. Organization through partials, I like a lot. So not everything in one file. Scrumpy Lungs, asking about the font size 62.5%. A lot of people like it, so the more I've looked into it, I haven't found any issues with it. So if you want to do it, I don't think there's any problems from what I've seen. Yeah, so I think you're safe doing it, as long as then like right on your body you redefine like font size equals 16 or 1.6 rem. Just so like you don't end up with something that accidentally ends up being really tiny. So wow, I was planning on doing a lot of work on this, and we've gotten one mixin created. I'll take my mixin and move it though. So let's take this mixin because we don't want it to live here. We want that mixin to live in my mixins file. Point, I don't like the name point. Size makes more sense. We'll change size. Okay, never mind. We'll do key then. Key. And I'm trying to think of another media query that I'm definitely going to want. I'm not too sure. Actually, I'll show you guys a nice thing you can also... Oh, I don't have a color map. We could do it with a loop, actually. I'm still getting errors. Oh, yeah. So here, because I broke these up, I also would have to come here now and say @use. I think I can just write variables. Variables. Right? Whoops. Can't I just do that? And that should work now? And if I do that, then my base @use. Abstracts and mixins. Actually here, I just want, if I hit save there, is it working now? Undefined mixin. Oh, because here it's not variables anymore, it's mixins, mixin. Undefined variable. Okay, so here, instead of use, is it forward, or did I just... 1 second. Let's just do... I want to keep the use for a second. So does this have to be a forward then? Map get breakpoints. Oh, do I have to do variables like that? Whoops.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I can't forward. Oh, is it because it's a forward? Oh, okay, there we go. So the use, I thought if you forwarded something, you didn't have to have a use and a forward, but I don't need to, I just need to use it here. Okay. So either, okay, so I could have that, or I could have my variables dot breakpoints. That would work too. Okay, so here I'm bringing my variable in so I can use it here. So it's a little bit more complex than it used to be. But then, so I have my breakpoints, that's getting brought into here. And then in my base file, I don't need the variable now. I would keep it here. Do I need to keep it there? I would probably keep this here anyway, but it should compile. Yeah, it's still compiling now. But I think like normally on a base file like this, I would want to have my variables accessible. So I'm going to leave that there. I'd probably do an as v and as m, just to make it easier if I want to mix in a variable to be able to create it. And that means here it becomes m. There we go. Does anyone have any suggestions? Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is like if each one of them, that's the main use of a forward, right? Like you're putting an index for each subfolder, and then you're doing a forward from there instead of a use. Lego Logic 16, you personally hate CSS, how to love it? I love it. I don't know. I think part of it is making, like, I think if you understand it well, you'll like it more. You might not fall in love with it, but I think you'll enjoy it more, or at least it will disagree with you less, maybe. So really making sure you understand like the fundamentals of how it works, instead of just always trying to like make things work, just like going back and like learning as much as you can of the fundamentals of how CSS is meant to work. I think it'd be the same as like if you're jumping into a React project and you don't really know it that well and you're just like constantly fighting with it and you're getting tons of errors, you're not going to enjoy it. Whereas if you really learn how that language works or the framework works and you really get into it, then things start coming together more. Windward Hive, do you use React? Not regularly. I can do React, but I can use it, but it's not part of my regular work, like day to day. Andy, but I mean, I know I was getting that error before when I used the app forward, but can't you use a forward? Like I read in their documentation, if you forward something, you don't have to use it. Like you don't have to do an at use and an app forward. But within that file, you can still use it. Maybe I mixed up something though. I don't do any back-end programmer 2008. I'm like front of the front end. If you could go more, even like that's why even like with React and stuff, like that's not part of my thing as much. Just like I focus so much on front of the front end as much as possible. So yeah, back end isn't where I live at all. Yeah, if anyone has any suggestions for a mix-in or something you'd like to see me make. I was planning on coming and creating a few more, but I'm running, it's already 11:15 here, almost. So I think I'm gonna start, I'm not gonna end it quite yet. We'll go to here for a second though. Alex, I got that from the front of the front end. I got that from, what's it called? The podcast with Chris Coyer and Dave Rupert. That's escaping me right now. It's my favorite development podcast. Shop Talk Show. That's it. They had a big series on thinking like a front-end developer. It was probably around there, I think, when they started sort of referencing that idea of front of the front end and back of the front end, and how like front-end developer has segmented so much and become so much more than it used to be. Ed Birkenitz, welcome. Sorry that you missed the notification. I'm going to be jumping off in the next 5 minutes probably. I was going to end this one at like 10 o'clock, and look where we are now. Yeah, I went about an hour longer than I planned on, but that's okay. We've had some fun looking at some SCSS stuff. A mix-in which lifts a button when moused over. So something with like transforms. At mix in. I mean, for something like that, wouldn't even, you could call it like hover lift. So I mean, I would do this for like anything I'd want to put it on. Now maybe you'd only plan on using it for buttons, but so if you put that, I'm just trying to think. I'd probably do a transform. No, transition. Transform. Transform. This is where having a variable set up for this would be good, of like a speed. So like 500, you know, like speed. But whatever, we'll just throw like 350 maybe for now. Transition, transform that, and ease in, out. And that I probably wouldn't want to keep that too. I'd change this eventually to a cubic Bezier. And then we'd have our and man 7. There we go. My new keyboard doesn't have like the, I can only see the numbers. I can't see what the shift is, so I keep mixing stuff up there. So and hover and focus. Whoops. No, get out of here. And hover and focus, and then we would do a transform, scale. Scale's like super powerful, right? So 1.05 maybe. And this is where I'd need a button to actually see or actually have something for it to work on. But something simple like that would probably work. And then you'd probably want to, actually this is where a mix-in really does come in handy, because if you wanted a shadow to go with this, what you'd probably have here is box shadow of something. And this is where I did a video on it with like high performance shadows. Whereas here you could have a box shadow of say, I'm just trying to think, 0.25 M. So it's shifting down just a little bit. 0.5 M for the blur. So a smallish blur, 0 offset, and an RGBA of black 0.2. Nice thing with Sass, you can do that and it will output the RGBA value for you. One of my favorite things, one of my favorite Sass functions. And then I would come in with an and before that, so the before has, and actually another mix-in we could create would be for a pseudo element. So why don't we do that? At mix-in pseudo, because we could call it a, well, just call it a before, because we can do another one for after. Because creating pseudo elements always sucks, right? So a mix-in is nice, because every time you have a pseudo element, you'll want to have content. And what you could do, like, if this was one where I would picture myself ever needing something in here, we could make an optional argument that could insert content. Or we could even say, like, content here is, would this work? Let's just see. I'm not sure if, I've never tried this. Content is nothing. And then here we could say that the content is content. So if ever you needed to bring in content into your pseudo element, it would work. And we could even do like content position. Position is absolute. So here position is position. But if ever I needed to change that, I could. I feel like I'm doing something wrong because this is red, but whatever. We'll see if I mucked it up or not. So the content by default will be this, which is what we want. The position will go pause, not position, pause. We'll use this, which will default to absolute, because usually I do that for my pseudo elements. I'm also mucking one thing here. So position of relative. And then here I'd want to do the ampersand, and I'm saying this is a before, so before. And you could even get more like you could make this so you could do it as a before or an after using your mix-in, but we'll just do position is absolute, so content is nothing, position is absolute. I think we could just do that, and then I would also want an at content here, at content. So what I could do then is I could actually use this mix-in inside here. So then I could do at include before And then if I did put something here, so here I do box shadow of, we'll do 0. I'm trying to think if I should move it down or not. Whatever, I'm just gonna do a 0, 0, 1.25 M, 0 RGBA, BA of black at like 0.4. And you might be going like, why would I want to make that a pseudo element? But it's because here I would want to do a opacity of 0. So you can't actually see the shadow. And then what happens is on the hover, the this is my before. I should have done it as an after, eh? I'll make this after for now. After, just because it makes more sense for a shadow, I think. Anyway, whatever. My after would get an my after we get an opacity of 1, and that's also what would be transitioning. Transition. So this is where like a transition's a nice variable to have. So like ideally I'd also bring that in. So if this worked properly, let's go see if this actually makes sense. We'll call this .btn. And if we do at, what did I even call it? I called it hover lift. So at include m.hover lift, what's going to happen? Is that going to compile? Let's see if that worked out properly. Nice. Button hover, yeah, I think that actually worked out. So from writing this, I can get all of that, which is nice. So it's coming in with the pseudo element. The content is good. Position abs. I don't need the position absolute though. Oh, would I? Yeah, I guess for that I would want that to be positioned absolute, and I'd have to work on that a bit more just to get it actually underneath, because right now it's not going to be in the right spot. So I'd have to play with that a little bit more. This is where like actually having something that I'm looking at on the page would help. But you get the idea of how that could be useful. So button hover, button focus, when you go on, the transform will scale up, and that other shadow will come in that's on the pseudo element. Yeah, I love mixins. So like for me, the pseudo element one's super nice. I would have to play with this a bit more though. Like you could even bring in everything as arguments, right? So you could have content, position, top, left, bottom, right, all set up. And even here, I'm calling it after. Like you could even have it. I think you'd have to use extrapolation though, right? Let's try. We'll do this and then I gotta go. I gotta get some lunch. So here, we'll just call it, I'm gonna keep it as after for now. But here, let's just, and I'll change it all after. I just wanna see if this is even gonna work. Location is, by default, let's just say by default it's a before. Before. Before like this maybe. And then here, after, we want a $, and then we want location. Nope. Oh, not, because I can't just put the location here. I need to extrapolate it, no? Lock. Yeah, that doesn't work. This needs to be extrapolated. How do I do the extrapolation in Sass? Oh, it's a hash. Whoops. I was saying extrapolation, interpolation. Did that work? That worked. So my location is before. So, and then if I change this to after here just for fun, you can see that's after now. Cool. So this, we could call this like pseudo. Leave everything else the same. This would have to import that though. Hover lift, include pseudo. And what I could say is that the location is actually an after instead. And then that brings it in as an after. Whereas if I put this as before, it's doing it. Oh, here. Why is this one staying after? Oh, I had that as an after. The reason I put an after here instead of using that is just because I didn't want to bring in all this stuff again. Because I think it would muck things up, actually. So that's a little bit of an issue, but not the end of the world. I could just put before and just have to remember to change it. Once you set this up, like this is set up to always be the before, so I don't find that's a big deal. Maybe there's a smarter way to do that, but I think that's fine. So that's good. And then I guess like ideally you would set this up a little bit more though, right? Like, and even just to make this a bit more readable, you could definitely do this. Just so if you come across this, you want to be able to read it. And then we could do top 0, bottom 0. I think it's a pseudo element. This is probably the most common. Left. Maybe I'm wrong. Right. I just feel like that's probably what you're using most of the time. So then you could set all of these up. There we go. No, whoops. I don't want those to be 0 though. I want each one of those. Oh, I can't do all of them at once. I just want to come in here. Top. Whoops. Top. Bottom. Come on, Kevin. Bottom. Left. And right. There we go. So now, just for fun, if I came in here, let's just say it's on something else. Say you come in with like a card, and for some reason your card needs a pseudo element on it. I can do an @include m.pseudo, and it should output my card that has a pseudo element on it. So all of that's already done. And then if I wanted to, I could come and change stuff. So I could say that, and actually I think if I'm in the right order here, I could actually just write in after, and it would switch, right? Yeah. The only thing that's important here is if you're not saying what you're changing, it has to be in the right order. So, but if I just write after, it's becoming the after. And if I write before, it's becoming before. If I leave it blank, it's going to before, because the position is, whoops, not the position. Where did I define it? Here, location's the first thing, and it's defaulting to before. So I could do, you have to do them in order if you're not putting the name or the variable, or the argument name or whatever you want to call it. But if I say here top is 50% now, it should only overwrite the top one, and it keeps all the other things. Or I could even come in with a position of relative, and I could switch out the position to be relative and 50%. So that could be a nice use for a mix-in. Oh, Yamu, I guess you got your answer? Yeah, mix-ins are awesome. Once you set them up, and these are like it's for anything you're reusing a lot of the time. They're super, super useful. And this is one of those things where you're not really going to save code like by trying to come up with some other, like, I guess you could have a pseudo, like, the advantage of this over a utility class that's going to implement a pseudo element is the utility class falls apart as soon as you want to change one of these variables that are at play, right? So like any of these want to change, like a utility class could be useful if every time it's exactly the same. You could just make a pseudo class before and not a pseudo class, like a utility class for your befores, a utility class that will add an after, and just reuse it. But the fact that you can easily change any of these variables that are in here with just like one little thing here, this is where like the mix-ins really start getting their value. Yeah, so if anybody else has any questions, I think I'm gonna leave it there, but I'm gonna go large screen. Somebody told me I should have a credits screen too. If you're using Font Awesome, it could be really handy for sure, yeah. And if you're using the same, like, certain icons, you set up the variables, so you can just, like, say, like, do your mix in, and in the brackets, you just put in, like, I don't know, check mark or X or whatever, and it can be even easier, yeah. Yeah, somebody said I need an end screen, and I never created one. Just so, because I know the chat takes a while to, like, sync, because I'm ahead of you guys. So I might just leave at one point and let you guys finish things off on your own. But I'll take a few questions if anybody has any before I get out of here. I've gone this long already, so another 10 minutes won't hurt if anybody has anything. I should do a new community challenge. I'm glad that you're here, Walton. Does anybody have any suggestions for community challenges? Programmer for CSS? Sass is the one I know. I don't use... like, if I look at a less file, I can understand it. Same with stylus, I can understand what's happening. But I've never used them. So... yeah, if anybody has... here, let me pull... Can I pull it up on my... Sass isn't a framework. It's like a well, it's a preprocessor. Same with less and all those other ones. They're preprocessors. If anybody... okay, let's bring the chat in here. So like this little guy down here has your points, or your rems, I should say. You can use them for different stuff. What do we have? Hydrate, posture check, highlight messaging, stretches, all of that. Oh, you can unlock some emotes if you want to use your points for unlocking. I have my thumbs up. I don't even know how to use my... sorry, that's my mouse. How do I use my thumbs up? Is it like thumb? Yeah, there we go. So you can unlock those. I don't know how long it stays unlocked for. I have no idea how this stuff works, but if we also had a community challenge in the past, and I have no ideas what to do for community challenges. So if anybody has any ideas, I'd gladly take one. It's something that you guys could put your points together on to try and get me to do something. So if it's like, ideally it'd be something that I guess would be hard for me to do. It could be something silly. It could be something fun. It could also be something like completely off topic. I'm starting to do Among Us streams too, and I know most people probably aren't interested in that, but if you want me to stream something that's like completely different, we could do a community challenge that will go towards that. Like, I'm really, really open to ideas, so there you go, programmer. So if you have any ideas on anything that like you would want to see me do would be a challenge for me, I would definitely... my son plays Minecraft. I mean, I know how to play it. I've played with my kids, but in the Discord, if ever you see it says Kevin's playing Minecraft, it's usually because it's my kid, even though he has his own computer now. So actually, it's not true. If you see it says it's playing Minecraft, it is me now, and I'm probably playing with them. Sometimes on Saturday mornings, I play some Minecraft with my kids, but it's creative mode, and we're pretty relaxed with how we play. Or they have like all there's like they're very much into a zombie city thing now that we play. Rising Rems is not a good thing, the movies tell me so. Craig Miller saying thanks for the person who mentioned the Atom key map extension for VS Code. Nice, you're ready to start using VS Code. Next time I'll get some feedback from you and see what you think of it. Viraj likes creative mode too. Yeah, I'll throw this. I'll have to remember to export it from. I didn't record, but I can get this up onto YouTube, Ravi. I just have to remember to export it. Twitch has like an automatic export. You just actually have to push the button to do it. And on my last two streams, because they've been a bit more disorganized, I haven't bothered. The Atom theme in VS Code is like a home away from home. Yeah. I mean, most games that I play, I don't play many games at all. I wanted to try Cyberpunk, but I haven't finished. I was playing, what's it called? There's the Star Wars game that I've been playing that I haven't finished. I don't even remember the name of it. And I said I'll get Cyberpunk when I finish that, and because I just haven't played it at all, I haven't bothered. So I can't justify buying a new game if I still have unfinished other games. But I find like long games I don't have time to get into games these days. Like I don't put a lot of time into gaming at all like I used to. So most games I play these days are ones where they're like super casual, just so I can like play for 10 minutes, feel like I actually made progress, and then come back to it whenever I have another chance. So I did play. I mean, Among Us is fun just because that's different though in a way. It's probably one of the only like social games I play that's more social. Usually I do one player stuff. So I played a lot of Prison Architect. There are other games I have played in the past. Let me see. I'm looking at my Steam list right now. I played a lot of. There's a game called Cities in Motion, which was like what's it called? Transportation simulator type thing, and Cities Skylines, which is sort of like a modern version of SimCity. I've played a lot of. Actually, I used to play a lot of Faster Than Light, which was a fun little game. What else do I have in there? There's some really old games. A lot of Civilization 5, but that was a long time ago. There's Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo. I really enjoy them, but they're not, like, you need so much time, I find, to sink into those. Kevin, one more yeah, me and Kyle are planning another CSS challenge. It'll be on my channel next time. But yeah, it's in the works, and I have some other things in the works with a few other people too. There's Jessica, you might know her as the Coder. If you don't know her, definitely check out her YouTube channel. And Jay, who's been hanging out every now and then in the chat here, who might destroy me. But we need to get news out that there's other people that know what they're doing with this CSS stuff. Me and Ed were planning something a long time ago and it never happened. I'm terrible at getting these things moving though, so maybe I could reach back out to him. Hope you got to know the Polis map yesterday. Good. I find, yeah, with Among Us, I find that if you're doing, like, Skeld's fine for, like, quick games, but if you have the voice chat going and you're more involved games, Polis tends to work better, I find, just because Skeld's so small that it can be hard for the imposters. A little bit more, like, they can go into it, but, I mean, with Polis, it's a little bit hard sometimes, too, because it's, well, first of all, learning the map and learning I remember the first few times you're trying to figure it out and like the doors are locked and you can't figure out how to unlock them. OpenTTD. I actually, for those who haven't, we were talking about it earlier, that my background a little bit. I actually studied urban planning, so I'm really into like transport simulators and stuff like that. I've never heard of OpenTTD. Huh. Based upon Transport Tycoon Deluxe. Cool. I might have to look into that. I'll pull that up. OpenTTD. I'm definitely I'll leave this open so I don't forget later. It makes me, I mean, yeah, it has everything in it. That's cool. I did get really into City Skylines, but I mean, it's supposed to be a city builder, but it ends up being a lot of traffic management. But the traffic, I think they've added stuff. I haven't played it in probably like 6 months or a year now. But I had to get some mods and stuff because so much came down to traffic once your cities got bigger, but there wasn't a good way to manipulate it. But then they had mods and stuff that made it easier to control. But they had tons, like it was all about transport in the end. Sorry, I'm coughing a little bit. 1 second. I'll just hit this mute. Trains will run over your buses, and boats are slow. Planes are expensive. Trains are the best. Good to know. I'll definitely check that out. If I have, I have to, not today though. I recorded a YouTube video last week. I'd recorded 4, and for one of them, somehow I didn't record the audio. But I did 4 back to back, and I don't understand how the audio bugged out on one of them only. Usually it's all of them or none of them. I'm glad it was only one and not all. But yeah, I need to re-record that one, and then I have a few other things. And for everyone who enjoyed this session today, there'll be a lot more Sass content coming out on my YouTube channel. So it's even multiplayer. That's interesting. That's cool. Yeah, I'll have a lot more Sass content coming out on my YouTube channel, and some other stuff too. And for this week, yeah, also Thursday, I will be doing that. I committed to it. So Thursday, I'll be live with a challenge, with a review, website review type thingy. So if you're in the Discord, you'll hear more about that. If you want the Discord, we'll put that in the chat right now so you can get to it if you're not there. And what else do we have planned? Tomorrow I'll be live. Oh, actually, if you're into Among Us, come to the Discord as well. I plan on doing a game tomorrow, probably right around this time, a little bit later than what we are right now. Just because I have something at 10 o'clock. It's almost noon here, so I should be finished that by noon. So as my lunchtime break, I'm going to be playing Among Us. So if you want to join in, I'll be posting about it in the Discord this afternoon. So if you want to play with me, you're more than welcome to join. I'll also stream that. So if you want to, I might be live a lot tomorrow as well. And I'll be live on Thursday with the website review stuff. So we got a lot planned. Programmer a little bit late, but you'll try. That's cool. We'll play for at least an hour. Maybe, I don't want to, well, I don't know. At least 1 hour. So starting around 12 Eastern to 1-ish. You know, my lunchtime. And if it goes a little bit longer than that, that's fine. I don't think I have anything after that. I just have a bunch of editing that I do need to do, so I can't play for too long. But yeah, come in the Discord and I'll be posting about it there. If you want more information or you want to join in. If you want to watch, it'll be streamed here. And I might be live before that again with an interview. We'll see. Hopefully that works too. I've never done a live interview, so I'm hoping the technology doesn't fall apart on me. But we'll see how that's going. Is that 6 p.m. your time? Are you 6 hours ahead? Oh, if I'm still playing at 6 p.m. I think we're 5 hours off, right? I'm not sure. Are we 5 hours? Am I 5 hours difference? I think it is, eh? Yeah. UK is GMT. Yeah, I'm 5 hours ahead of GMT. So we might still be around at 6, we'll see. And let me see while I'm here live with you guys, actually. I'm going to make a... Okay, it's going to switch screens for 1 second and then we'll be back. Is this working? Is anything happening? No, it's just a black screen. How does this work? Okay, I'll come back on so you can see. Oh, now it's working. What's going on? Do I need to open that for that to work? Let me just go back here for a second. I'm just going to leave it here for a minute and see what happens. Huh, it just stays black. Okay. So, let me open up Photoshop for 1 second. Oh no, should I do it? Yeah, I should. Oh no, I can do it with... I can't change... If I change scenes... Okay. Oh, you know what? I don't have to change scenes. I can do it like this. I'm going to close Photoshop because I don't need it. Where's what I'm looking for? There it is. They're not the nicest ones, but it's good enough. Add source. Right there. Right in the middle. And that should work in a second. So I guess, yeah, I'll put some more music on for everybody. And I'm going to get going. So somebody said they would like the streams not to end so abruptly. So I just want to say a thank you to everybody who's been here. Or maybe I could do it on, whatever, we'll leave it here for now. So I'm going to turn my video off, and I'll turn my face off in a second. Where is that? Not that one. Face. Ah, there we go. And then if I open this, if I did this properly, I didn't do it properly. Oh man, I don't know how to use this software very well. How come it's working there? I'm trying to get credits to roll. I can get credits in here. Copy, select, Done. Okay, that one's not working. Okay, I guess there's no credits today. I'll just leave the chat open for a little bit and I'll end the stream. Yeah, actually, just before I jump off, for anybody who is going to play, I might do it in the other server, just so it's easier to get a lot of people, but I'm going to run a poll. So much into... I'm going to run a poll on the channel after I finish eating lunch to see how many people could be in for tomorrow at that time. And if it's anything that's like 10 or less, I'm going to do it in the other server because we can fill up the lobby then. And it'd be easier, I think, than inviting people into my server. So, and if anyone's not there already, I'll make sure that you get an invite to that place. Or I might do it the other way around. Anyway, I'm going to get people, but thank you all for hanging out. And I'm going to keep trying to get this credits thing working for a second here, but it doesn't seem to want to work. Source. That's fine. I have no idea how to refresh cache of current page. Did that work? I have to learn how to use... No, it's just saying donor 1, donor 2, and you guys can't see anything. Who knows? Oh, create output projector. Is that what I want? No, definitely not. All right, I'm just gonna let you guys go if you want to chat a little bit, and the stream will end in a few minutes. So thank you all so much for hanging out with me. It was a lot of fun. Didn't get as much work done as I was hoping, but that's okay. And I'll see everybody hopefully tomorrow around 10 o'clock Eastern, maybe only at lunchtime, depending on the interview. And next, I'll be live again on Thursday after that. And if you're not then, I'll see you next Monday. Thank you guys so very much. Definitely the worst outro ever. Thank you everyone who did follow. Thank you for the sub. I can't even find... Actually, I do. I might have the sub. There we go. Thank you, Vetermless, for the sub. And everybody have an awesome day.